Hi everyone, welcome to the latest installment in our LinkedIn Live Leadership Conversation series. I'm Barry Winkless, I'm CSO of Cpl and head of our Future Work Institute. I'm delighted today to be joined by Ruairi, site lead of Diligence Ireland Hub. Hi Ruairi, welcome.
Barry, thanks very much for having me. How are you?
Great. It's all the work is up to you now today, Rory. You only have to ask the question. So already I feel an awful lot more comfortable. So Rory, you're relatively new to Diligence. So I suppose my first question is why Diligence? Why did you join Diligence? Why does it make sense for your career at the moment?
Yeah, listen, I think one of the big things that stood out for me, Barry, is Diligence commitment to growing in Galway and engaging with the community. I think community is a really big theme within Diligent, but within the office and virtual offices as we have right now, but also the charities and businesses in the locations that Diligent sets up. So there were definitely some key things that attracted me. And also, listen, having worked and being from the west of Ireland and having worked in Galway specifically for nearly 5 years, the talent, I believe, is world class in Galway. And that was definitely one of the big things that I know tipped it in the favour for Diligent to come to Galway. A year ago to the day, pretty much I had the chance to meet my now boss, Lydia Haskins, and a number of the executive team in Diligent, along with Ricky Keneally from the IDA, who had set up an executive lunch to help Diligent understand a bit more about the locality. And I was really blown away by the ambition, and not just as a company, but the ambition for Galway and where Galway can be such a catalyst to a transformative period in Diligent, which we're going through right now. So, really, really exciting. And I really enjoyed the last 6 weeks since I began.
Fantastic. I'm proud man from the west of Ireland, Mayo man, because I think you were suggesting you're going to wear the old Mayo jersey. I'm not sure I could have done the interview under those conditions. Rory, I just want to, I know from our own conversations, you've had quite an interesting career journey to date. So I wonder, could you just kind of fill us in on, shall we say, that interesting path that you've taken to Diligence?
Absolutely, Barry. And as you said, a proud Mayo man, a proud Turvicagea man. I'm from a Gaeltacht area on the shores of Loch Ness. Really, had a great upbringing in a beautiful part of the country. Went off to not quite the big smoke, maybe the little smoke in Limerick to attend UL. Did an IT and telecoms degree, and then to the big smoke eventually, like most of us end up in Dublin to do it in advertising and e-commerce post-grad. And it was on the back of that I ended up in my first big boy job in 98 FM, which was a huge culture shock, but one I thoroughly enjoyed. And I spent nearly 6 years there, lucky enough to start off as a junior account manager for advertising agencies, and ultimately led the sales teams in 98 FM and Spin for a couple of years before moving to Google in 2008. I'll be honest, I spent nearly 5 years in Google and all. For the first 6 months, I thought a lot about and actively tried to leave Google. I just found it such a shift, I think, from the emotionally charged and personality-driven environment of radio into probably the most data-driven organization in the world. And I think, I'd done very well in the radio business because I think I had a bit more of an analytical and way of approaching sales and strategy. And I think I led by teaching. And then I went into Google, and overnight I'd eradicated my unique selling point of being a leader and felt like an imposter for quite a long time, trying to lead really experienced digital salespeople when I had none. So it took a number of months and a mentor to kind of flip my mind about a little bit. Google had recently acquired YouTube. It was the number 1 game in search, but had only really scratched the surface. I was really looking up to Yahoo at the time in terms of display. And in 08, 09, there was a bit of a flatlining in economies, full stop. So the search advertising was plateauing. So certainly, I think my storytelling and benefit selling skills from radio days came into play to kind of help introduce some transformative measures of selling, something that Google weren't feature-led selling in terms of AdWords. So had a great time there. Actually left Google temporarily. My dad got sick. He took a heart attack young at the end of 2009. And I have my mom and a few younger siblings back home, so I felt it was the right thing to do. A few months later and 4 stints later, he told me to get out of the house and go back up to Dublin. We just heard we were expecting our first.
Classic father response, or get out of the house.
Yeah, I think he was like, did I not tell you this a few years ago when you went to college? You know, you're welcome, but only in short stints, I think was his message at the time. But went back up, was lucky enough to interview and offered 3 jobs there. And I said, listen, under the circumstances, because I was incredibly grateful, pick the one is most, I suppose, important. So I went on to lead a couple of sales and account management teams there till 2013, and then the then head of sales for North America for Google moved to a company called Adroll and asked me to move over to help set up their EMEA operations in Dublin. So I moved there in July 2013. Sorry, September 2013. And Admiral was a roller coaster, to say the least. I had definitely some great days there. Probably had personally some of the toughest days, and professionally some of my toughest days there as well. They just received a large round of funding, and we were scaling really quickly. We hired 100 people in the first 18 months. We opened up offices in London, Tokyo, Sydney, and we're really scaling really quickly. And then, definitely learned a lot along the way. But I wouldn't change it for anything. And I think it helped me kind of take a step back and realize what's most important to me personally, and that was family. And we made the decision then in 2015, December, to relocate back to Mayo and back to Turbicagia, where we now live. And I continued with that role for another 6 months before I joined SiteMinder in Galway in 2016. So my first day, 2 hours into it, I was on top of a stage announcing that we were bringing 100 new jobs to Galway, in front of dignitaries and RTE and all the different media outlets, and hoping that no one would ask me any questions about SiteMinder, given I was only 2 hours new into it. But I did that with my then boss, Di Williams, and someone I consider a really good friend now, who's a great mentor all the way through. And I started in SiteMinder as the site lead. We hired 100 people in 100 days, which was a huge experience. And I managed to lead a few different roles within SiteMinder, most recently the inside sales global leader, up until last month when I joined Diligence. But yeah, I wouldn't change anything. It definitely was a tricky route, but a challenging route, and one that I've learned a huge amount from, and hopefully something that I can put into play positively in my role in Diligent.
So, talk about Diligent, really exciting times, to establish this new hub in Galway. Can you tell us a little bit about Diligent as an organization, and, a little bit, I suppose, about what the role of that hub is going to be in Galway? What does it look like? What are the kind of things that are going to happen there? And I know you're only a few weeks in, but, seeing as you managed to do 2 hours in, I'm expecting an amazing answer now for this one.
I knew I shouldn't have said that, Barry. I've said that. So Diligent helps, I suppose in essence, Diligent helps board directors and executives make better decisions and govern organizations through the use of data analytics, insights, and secure collaborative tools. We have the largest global network of executives and directors, relied on by 19,000 companies. 50% of the Fortune 1,000 companies work and use Diligent products, and we have nearly 700,000 leaders in over 90 countries. So, we're a company that have been, I suppose, probably under the radar in some capacities, building quite a significant business. And even last month, we had 2 recent acquisitions of Steel Corporation and Galvanize, which now makes us the biggest player in governance, risk, and compliance globally. So, and Galway plays a huge part in that expansion and that transformation of the business. We're committed to hiring 200 people this year since we announced our entry into Ireland in November. Right now we have 88 people, and we've hired 88 people in less than 4 months. And by the end of this month, we'll have 100 people employed locally for Diligent. So well on track to hit our 200 goal by the end of the year. And I guess another thing that attracted me that's relevant here is just the breadth of roles that we are hiring in and building out of Galway. And we have support roles, customer success roles, finance roles, HR roles, product, and we're building a very broad base. And that was something hugely attractive and exciting for me, to build pretty much a 360 operation in Galway, and back Galway in the west of Ireland in terms of the talent. And I think that gamble that those that aren't experienced of working in Galway might have made at the beginning is certainly paying off. I'm blown away genuinely by the talent we've been able to attract. We've certainly got a team of A players, and they often say surround yourselves with people that are smarter than you. I'm definitely well down the pecking order of smart people and diligence, but just great people, level-mind professionals. And I think when it comes to building a culture and setting the foundations of any business, people are that critical component of it, and we've been able to hire and attract some of the best and brightest out there.
Thanks, Rory. I actually had the great privilege of interviewing one of your colleagues, CEO Lisa Edwards, actually a number of months ago, and I really got a sense of two things really about Diligence. One is it's an organization that really knows who it is and it's going somewhere, and the second for me was this right on the money, purpose-driven business, trying to enable purpose-driven businesses, which I thought was really interesting. And just on the whole kind of purpose and leadership piece, you've had a really interesting career. So what are the 3 or 4, leadership lessons, let's say, or insights you'll take with you into Diligence, and you'll take with you, for the rest of your life? What would you kind of say those are?
I think first of all, Barry, and probably the most attractive trait for me personally and professionally is authenticity. So be authentic. Maybe not at the same level as Megan was speaking about in her interview around her authentic self, but I think it's the critical component. It builds trust. You shouldn't speak out of both sides of your mouth, depending on who you're talking to. You should, from my perspective, you should be the same around the CEO of the business as you are around anyone in the business. And people know what they get when you are yourself. It builds trust, and that's a huge component, I think, in terms of leading, and particularly leading in challenging conditions. We've set ourselves a pretty difficult challenge of scaling an operation in a fully remote environment. And if you don't have that authenticity and that ability to connect with people, well then, those type of aspirations are certainly incredibly difficult to achieve successfully. I think secondly then, Barry, I'd say genuinely be emotionally connected to what you do. So you can work for the best company in the world with the best products, but if you don't care, and if you as a leader, you need to care more, I believe. You need to try harder. You need to be more passionate about what you do, because at the end of the day, that's contagious. And that's the type of environment that I've always reacted very well to, and it's one that I've tried my best to kind of create as well. Third, then I would say is talk less, listen more. Back to me being one of the not the smartest person in Diligence by a long way, but surround yourself by great people. Actively listen. I think it's one of the most underrated traits out there, is to actually really listen intently and purposely to what people have to say, and involve people in decision making, and where at all possible. I think that helps share accountability and helps build a huge camaraderie with teams as well. And I think when people share, kind of are given more accountability, I think there's a perception that that's extra pressure and people crumble by it. I think generally when you involve people and give them extra accountability and responsibility, people rise to the challenge and productivity can soar. And probably the last piece, and I know I've probably touched on it once or twice during our chat, but it's all about people and it's all about culture. Genuinely ensuring that you hire really rigorously, and you hire people that obviously have the competencies to do the role, but also the potential to do great things in the future. And for me as a leader, your role is very much to create the environment and the culture for people to truly go on and do phenomenal things for themselves personally and for the business professionally. And that's what, a big part of the role that I see. It's about creating that environment for Team Diligent and Team Galway. And that's certainly something that I'm very, very passionate about achieving.
Thanks very much, Rory. Great answer, I have to say. Just going to open it up, guys. If any of you are watching this that want to do a live question, I'm sure Rory will be able to freelance his way his way to an answer in some shape or form. Just looking at the comments piece here, I'm not sure if there's anything coming in yet. This is the point, Rory, where part of me kind of goes, hopefully nobody's going to ask any questions or any awkward questions, and then equally I kind of go, sometimes it's good to know people are actually listening to us, in terms of the process. I don't see anything coming in there yet. So what I might ask for, I just might ask a little bit then in terms of the future, if you don't mind. What do you see as the big opportunity for Diligent, number one, as an organization, and then also the hub and Galway, and coming back to this whole west of Ireland piece, and all of that bit. What's your aspiration? What do you think can happen into the future?
Yeah, listen, I think a big piece we've been really focused on over the last number of months has been the onboarding experience and early life experience of people coming into Diligent. We've been lucky enough to work with a really talented group called SY Partners, a third-party consultant, to help us rethink and redesign that journey that we piloted globally in recent weeks with new hires in Galway. And I think that's so important, and that's certainly something that we'll continue to put a huge focus on, is how you can ensure that the pre-start and early start in the business and in Diligent is at a hugely engaging and top level. And then a big piece that we've been putting a lot of focus on is, okay, what happens after that first week? So working in advance of new hires starting and really getting your 30, 60, 90-day focus plans down. I think it's hugely, there's a huge amount of anxiety joining any business, and at the best of times in the current environment, I think it's ratcheted up a little bit more because we miss those personal contacts and those visual cues that only in person can bring. But I think there's a big responsibility on us and on companies to try and take that anxiety away and help people bring their best self to the office as quickly as possible. And that'll definitely, and has been, a big focus for us over the last while. And continuing to work with partners locally. And I'm lucky enough to lecture in NUIG as well. It's a great organization with phenomenal staff and students. And I think continuing to build relationships with the third-party institutions, education institutions, and other partners within the locality, as well as different charitable bodies, to really walk the walk when it comes to community is certainly a big aspiration I have for the Galway office.
Great, thanks, Rory. I'm going to pull in one question here. So here we go. What advice would you give to someone looking to transition into tech sales or account management role from outside tech and outside sales? Great question, I would have said, Rory, and I would say you're well placed to answer.
Yeah, hopefully. Great question. And first of all, great decision. I think tech sales and account management's a phenomenally exciting space to be in. Sales full stop, I think, is probably one of the most fundamental skills that anyone should have. We're always selling, whether you're in sales or you're in an interview selling yourself, or on a LinkedIn Live selling Diligent and the dream, or selling an idea full stop. An appreciation and ability to sell and influence and convince is hugely important. So I think in terms of advice for someone trying to get into that space, my experience of tech sales and account management sales is, far from the boiler room or the Wolf of Wall Street images that Hollywood have kind of given us around sales. I think it's a very advanced, very meticulous, process-driven environment. I think really honing your skills from an organizational perspective, being able to commit to a process, being able to identify and manage a pipeline effectively, and know where to spend your time, and trust the inputs. I really believe that sales is fundamentally very similar to professional sports. You don't play a match every weekend or run a race every weekend, but you train every day as a pro athlete to put yourself in the best position to be successful when the time comes. It's the same in sales. I think you don't sell sometimes every day, but you train different parts of your pipeline, whether it's creating energy at the top of the funnel to attract new prospects, or whether it's handling objections or closing deals, and knowing where to spend your time and how to put that rigor in, and trust in the inputs and trust that the output will look after itself. And I think in tech sales, because it is generally, can be quite high velocity and even tech driven in terms of how you sell, nailing a process and having the organization to know where to spend your time and where not to are probably some of the critical pieces of advice I could give anyone moving into that space.
Great answer. I would have said there, Rory. I might take, I'll take one more question. What tips can you share with us that have served you well in the past and obviously keep you leadership fresh? There you go.
Yeah, great question, Graham. I think
moisturizer.
Yeah, just connecting yourself with a dream of winning the All Ireland is another.
Oh God! Oh no! I was waiting for this. I was waiting for the Mayo curse. I was trying to get to the end, Rory, of this interview without this one coming up, but I knew you'd bring it up.
It's a take of woe, but no, in all seriousness, I think it's constantly evolving, Graham. I think, listen, I'm not sure I've ever had an original idea of my own. I spend an awful lot of time with people, and I've had to adapt hugely during the pandemic, not being able to go for coffee chats or lunches or water cooler conversations. I'm incredibly interested in what people think, and it's not just a tick the box exercise. How I lead and how I approach things comes from the conversations and feedbacks of many people, and as many people as I possibly can, and that doesn't have a pay grade or a level in the business associated with it. The people who do the work and the real work are generally the frontline staff that know best what we are doing and what we should be doing. And I'm a student, and you need to constantly be a student of those that have and are going through the experience. So I think a commitment to your customers, both external and internal, in terms of your staff, is probably the most important piece to ensure that you don't become stale and you stay connected with those that you're trying to lead. So keeping that connection in place is probably the most important piece.
Or do you mind taking one more? Is that okay? And then that's definitely it. So, make sure you don't have any difficult ones. The new acquisitions made by Diligent in February this year, what changes does the company expect? I would imagine all positive growth, developing out your product portfolio, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I mentioned earlier, the acquisitions of Steel Corporation and Galvanize have made us the largest player in governance, risk, and compliance. So I think it's hugely exciting. I think being able to partner with innovative and exciting companies like those, and some of the acquisitions we've made down through the years, has helped us build up the ability to add consistently more value to a broader and very, very, I think, in the past underserviced part of business, which is GRC. And I think helping to give organizations and executives and directors the ability to put GRC at the center of their strategy is certainly a big piece that these acquisitions will help us to influence more and more. So it's all with the focus of put the customer first and ensuring that our passion for governance, compliance, and risk is transmitted, and we're able to support companies making that front and center of their strategy.
Thanks very much, Rory. Look, I have to say, just personally, from a kind of a personal perspective, heading up the Future Work Institute, it's great to see organizations like Diligent, number one out there, that are very purpose driven and part of the future. And then secondly, also establishing a really important hub in Ireland as well. So guys, thank you very much for watching and listening. And Rory, really heartfelt thanks from ourselves and Cpl. I know we work very closely with you guys for taking the time as well, and I very much appreciate you sharing your insights. So with that, guys, we leave it at that, and it's a goodbye from me and goodbye from Rory.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Bye.